was collecting the different thanks that people wanted to express to Eric, hoping to come up with a list of 20 items. Maybe that'd be stretching it a bit. And the list was more like 45, which I have now whittled down to 20 to share with you this morning by way of saying our thanks to Eric for his 20 years as music director. And I'll say now, so that I don't forget to say it at the end, he's not leaving. He will still be here. He may even sing in the choir. And he's going to continue serving the church in all sorts of different ways. You have served the church in so many different ways. So this is not goodbye. This is purely thank you. And here we go. Number 1, Soli Deo Gloria means the glory is for God alone. And what Eric has done in our midst, the ministry that he's brought through music, has always been for God's glory and not for his, which is the first thing you know about him if you've worked with him. Number 2, to that end, he explains to the choir why each song has been chosen. He calls their attention to the words and the way the music paints the words, that they have a message to share. And so what you have received from the choir is not only musical excellence, but they sing having been told that somebody's life may just depend on this. You need to bring this music alive. Number 3, he asks, happy song or sad song? And that's a reminder that they're supposed to smile. Number 4, he is spontaneous and playful. He says yes to new things. I would add to that if there hasn't been a new thing for a while, he says, isn't it about time we did something new? Number 5, he's curious, and he makes you curious. His eyes shine with a new idea. Number 6, he's generous with his time and talent. For example, did you know that every Thursday night before choir practice, he's been offering private voice lessons to anybody who wants to come, free of charge. Come have a lesson. Number 7, he knows how to take command of a stage. He's got that kind of presence. He sang at the Met, for heaven's sake. And one member of the choir recalls him singing in The Barber of Seville at Seattle Opera. After seating his victim in the barber's chair, he threw shaving cream at him and then pulled out a plastic razor the size of a machete and had the audience in stitches. He's done 1 or 2 things like that around here too. But number 8, he's not didactic or self-important. Number 9, knowing the music scene in Seattle the way that he does, he shares it with the rest of us. He says, this would be good to go to. Or he comes back telling stories of something great he's heard. He has fun stories to tell, inside stories about all kinds of opera singers and conductors and staging. That's fun. Number 10, halfway done almost. He brings good humor and an upbeat attitude. One member of the choir says, I never saw him angry or worried. Wow, 20 years. You can't say that about me, and I've only been here for 3. He's always positive and never discouraged. Number 11, he has contagious enthusiasm for life and for music. He is the Energizer Bunny, indefatigable. How's that for a word? Yes. He makes everything twice as much fun. He has a bounce to his step. He smiles at us when we're singing. Number 12, we get to sing a variety of music. Doesn't get stuck in a rut. Number 13, he demands that you keep reaching further, striving to improve. Number 14, but he nurtures, supports, and complements the ability that you already have. He welcomes everybody, from established voices to struggling singers. He would never embarrass a lousy singer in front of everybody else. Number 15, he is flexible and unflappable. If things change at the last minute, he doesn't panic, but goes with the flow. We're going to get an example of that this morning. Number 16, 9 times out of 10, he is the one who decides to change things at the last minute. One choir member writes, I appreciate the fact that Eric often makes cuts in the music, sometimes just because he doesn't like a particular section. There's a running joke that if we had a journal listing music that we had sung in its entirety, the journal would be empty. Number 17, he rewrites verses on the fly to make the words more inclusive. Number 18, he's a Pied Piper. Everyone wants to follow him as he merrily leads the way. He He's used his connections to recruit excellent singers to augment the choir. Lots of them stay. As one says, I started as a guest soloist, and now we're family. Number 19. He has enthusiasm for putting on those great special music programs, even though they're a huge amount of work, for him first and foremost, lots of other people as well. And number 20, he has other abilities besides music. He knows how to conduct successful pledge campaigns. He knows how to paint a room perfectly without using masking tape. He's kind to children and old people. He leads hikes and retreats. He can cook a dinner for a dozen people and then actually enjoy the dinner. So we're going to continue putting all of those talents to work. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for all of this.
We're not done yet. You know, there comes that point where you want to say something to somebody to tell them how much they've meant to you, how much they've changed you, and you simply can't put it into words. You have to put it into song. And for that, I'd like to invite our friend Scott Warrender up. Scott has written an original piece. We were inspired by a quote by Jan Barry from Peter Pan. If I cannot fly, teach me to sing. And Eric, this is for you.
have one more thing to say before you respond to us, Eric. Here comes Megan.
Test? There we go. So I hope you enjoyed the real-life musical moment that I know you have in your life all the time, actually, but to also gift you the gift of song, your song, we wanted to also give you this. So it's a dedication of our music, If I Cannot Fly, written for Eric Parse in recognition of 20 years of devotion and inspiration. We love you, and we will miss you. Your CC Mac family. And it's here for everybody to sign. So in addition to the card for Clark, we have this, we'll have marker. Any of you want to sign at the back? We also have a journal for Eric, so if you want to write a longer message for him, we invite you to do that here after the service. So thank you, Eric, we love you.
To say more than you know, we come to church to enrich our lives spiritually, and for me the last 20 years with the choir has been the spiritual enrichment of my life. It's being with these wonderful people that are all friends of mine now. It's being able to share all of our talents with you, for you to give your love back the way you do and sports the way you do. Life doesn't get better than this. It really doesn't. So thank you. Thank you. So nice to see John Schrader in the back. John, thank you for coming. People that no longer sing with the choir. Jim, you know, when I first came here, you sang with the choir, you sang so beautifully, and your quartet and everything. Brian, you're in the back. Kim is back in the choir today. You know, all the people that have come to share this, thank you so much, Scott. That was so special. Thank you. And as I bring up Scott, something I said in the bridge, just having the support of Glenda here, of Scott, of Leslie when she was here. I can't do it without someone fabulous and wonderful to piano. So a special thanks to them. And there's one last omen. I have to change the batteries in this mic, you know, when they go dead. As I turned it on this morning, it said low battery. I went to my room where I have the batteries. It was the last two batteries. So I don't know what you'll do from here on.
Eric, what it says in the bulletin is supposed to happen now is Soli Deo Gloria. That's kind of appropriate. But if you would like to alter the order of service and do something completely different, that's your call.
To God alone we give glory, and let's let the choir do it right now.
Gloria.
Time for us to greet one another, and maybe you would like to come forward and greet this wonderful choir. Today is the day they stand down for their summer break. They will be back in the fall. But what a wonderful year it has been. Thanks to all of you. May the peace of Christ be with you all.
Peace of Christ be with you. Yeah. You got the flash on? Light? The light was on. I was. No. It was. I didn't put it on.
first is the prescribed gospel reading for today from Mark's Gospel. And the second is a poem by U.S. Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith. She is African American, and she tells the story of how she was touring in the South and seeing some of the places most closely associated with the slave trade and the experience of American slavery. She attended something called a ring shout. Has anybody ever been to a ring shout? That was new to me. I didn't know what it was. But it's the name given to the way that the slaves used to gather for worship. And maybe they would just be in small numbers and maybe in secret, but they would get into a circle. Somebody would have a big staff and kind of beat the time, and there would be singing and testimony and prayer as they walked in a circle together. Tracy K. Smith talked about the experience of attending the reenactment of a ring shout and how all of the feelings from her tour of what people had experienced had been weighing so heavily upon her and were expressed so vividly through that form of worship. And then a woman, who was it, who knows, came and looked her in the eye and said, "I love you," and was moving through the crowd, the tourists, the others, "I love you." And it had had a profound impact on her. So our second reading is the poem that she wrote in response to that experience. Donna will read that for us. But first, from Mark chapter 3. The crowd came together again so that they could not even eat. When Jesus' family heard it, they went out to restrain him, for people were saying, "He's gone out of his mind." And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He has Beelzebul, and by the ruler of the demons he casts out demons." His mother and his brothers arrived, and standing outside, they sent to him and called him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, "Your mother and your brothers and sisters are outside asking for you." And he replied, "Who are my mother and my brothers and sisters? Here are my mother and my brothers and sisters. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother."
Try to get through this. I'm unexpectedly feeling emotional. I don't know whether it's Eric's thing or your introduction to this poem, but it's impacting me. So, Wade in the Water by Tracy Smith. One of the women greeted me. "I love you," she said. She didn't know me, but I believed her. And a terrible new ache rolled over in my chest, like in a room where the drapes have been swept back. "I love you, I love you," she continued. Down the hall past other strangers, each feeling pierced suddenly by pillars of heavy light. "I love you," throughout the performance, in every hand clap, every stomp. "I love you" in the rusted iron chains someone was made to drag, until love let them be unclasped and left empty in the center of the ring. "I love you" in the water where they pretended to wade, singing that old blood-deep song that dragged us to those banks and cast us in. "I love you," the angles of it scraping at each throat, shouldering past the swirling dust motes in those beams of light that whatever we now knew, we could let ourselves feel anew. To climb, oh woods, oh dogs, oh tree, oh gun, oh girl, run, oh miraculous, many gone. Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, is this love the trouble you promised?
Here's a sermon Eric has been bugging me to preach ever since I arrived here. especially at Christmas and Easter, those holidays when we lift Jesus up as Son of God and Savior. Eric has spoken to me about his personal belief that if Jesus is the Son of God, so are we, sons and daughters of God, with the potential to be just as loving and powerful and saving in the living of our lives as Jesus was in his. The Christian message, he says, surely is about what we too can be. Is that fair? Give or take? So far I've resisted. I totally agree that we've got no barriers to living the Christ life except our own willingness to go there. And I love what happens when I hear Jesus looking around that big crowd to say, here are my mother and my brothers and my sisters, all these people. Same cosmic DNA in them as there is in me. Same incredible humanity, same possibility. If you and I really saw ourselves that way, there would be no stopping this church. We would be doing all the great things Jesus did, and more besides, exactly as he promised. We'd be inviting people into a fullness of life that would be pure gift to them and joy to us. I've got no problem with that insofar as it means raising us up a few notches. But the reason I haven't yet preached that sermon to Eric's satisfaction is that I'm afraid that in claiming our full identity as sons and daughters of God, brothers and sisters of Christ, we might accidentally pull Jesus down to our level. I want to see him eye to eye. I want to take his hand and step into the great big life that he lived. But I also need him to be more. I need him to transcend all the things that get in my way as a human being struggling to live by his invitation. I need something besides just my humanity to depend on. Because the Christian challenge is not simply to love. Love is the perfect example of what I'm trying to say. Everybody loves. That's basic to being human. Romantic love, I hope every one of us has experienced it in all its wild glory. And the love we feel for our families, our friends, our country, all these things are normal. This is what human beings feel. And lots of people stop right there. My loyalty is to my own. Let the rest of the world look after itself. But the challenge of Jesus is to draw the circle wider. Love one another as I have loved you, he commanded. And if we put today's scripture reading in mind, then we see him addressing not only his very intimate group of friends, but a great big group of people. City people and country people, prosperous people and poor people, a couple of tax collectors, a few prostitutes, a rebel Pharisee or two, some Greeks, lots of people who had come to him with problems, but stayed because of him. Think how I have loved you, he says, and you go, love like that, not in the limited way that the world lets you get away with. You love like I do. Those of us who went to see The Hunchback of Notre Dame this week heard it in a song. Esmeralda, the despised gypsy woman, comes to the cathedral for the first time, and she gets what it's about in a way none of the other characters do. All of them are praying for themselves, for money, fame, success. Her prayer is very different. I don't know if you can hear me, or if you're even there. I don't know if you would listen to a gypsy's prayer. Yes, I know I'm just an outcast. I shouldn't speak to you. Still, I see your face and wonder, were you once an outcast too? God, help the outcasts, hungry from birth. Show them the mercy they don't find on earth. God, help my people. They look to you still. God, help the outcasts, or nobody will. Using Eric's special day, I sort of triggered this in me, an opportunity to think about what it is we're really doing here, and how it is that we might live into that love that is so vivid in Jesus, that is potential in us. I started out thinking of it as Eric's special day, but then Elta handed me a list. There are other people in our congregation who have been enjoying milestones and recognition. Kim, retiring this June from teaching at the University of Washington, many years in the medical school, preparing new physical therapists, students to serve. But Jim, I've heard that you received an award, a 5,000-hour commendation from the Boeing Museum of Flight, volunteering every Thursday for 24 years. Just one of 3 people to be honored in this way. How about that? 5,000 hours. And Julie, I don't see Julie here. We'll have to congratulate her when we see her. Julie Gardner received a special award from the city of Mercer Island for her contributions as an outstanding volunteer. That's absolutely fantastic. We knew that about her, but it's great that the city has recognized it as well. And Aaron, up there being the guy in the show, we all felt that he should have had his very own bow to take. So, a season of milestones. This is the season of commencement addresses. So, think of this as a mini commencement address, all of us moving into wherever life is taking us next. I encountered the poet laureate, Tracy K. Smith, through the commencement address that she delivered at Wellesley College Friday before last. The Twitter started buzzing with amazing quotes. So I went looking for a copy of her speech, and I read it. And I discovered that she told all of those graduates of Wellesley College a story about her dog. She said one day she was out walking her dog when she spotted a neighbor walking his dog. This was a very big dog, one of those furry ones with ancestry someplace in the Arctic. Actually, she says, my dog spotted them first and went berserk, barking and tearing around in circles and straining against her leash. Tracy held on tight, but something went wrong. The collar was still on the dog, but the leash came off. How could that happen? And the dog flew across the street and went circling around the other man and the big dog, growling and barking and saying, you have no business being here. This is my territory. Tracy was more than embarrassed. She said, I was feeling the shame that always arises in me at such times as a dog owner who lacks control of her dog, which is to say, as an imposter and a bad citizen. She hurried over, almost too ashamed to look the other man in the eye as she apologized, grabbing young Coco and struggling to put the leash back on. But he looked back at her, and he smiled. He said, that's okay. It's a slight story on the surface, she said, but underneath, there's the proverbial ocean. In the week prior, my husband and I had been pressured to withdraw our young sons from a private nursery school because of their classroom behavior that would later, but not yet, not at the time of the walk, I'm remembering, align us with many other children and their families living with autism. I felt hurt because the situation had been handled by the nursery school with what seemed like a brusque disregard for their worth. They had been observed for 2 days, 2 short days, and rejected as problematic, unteachable. I struggled to understand how much of the preschool director's dismissal of their potential might have to do with race, perhaps none. But the pain I felt activated the reserve of pain that amassed over the course of my life from having been preemptively judged as threatening or unworthy of father because of my race. When that other dog owner was so kind, he pulled my mind from the spin cycle of anger and hurt and powerlessness that the preschool situation had created and sent me into my day, my life, restored. Another person, a stranger, treated me as I was momentarily incapable of treating myself. Let me say that again. Another person, a stranger, treated me as I was momentarily incapable of treating myself. Would you tell a dog story to a group of Wellesley graduates? What happened as I read that was that I imagined looking out at that group of students through her eyes, hearing maybe through their ears what she was saying to them. There they are with their shiny new educations and the whole world in front of them. And these are the college kids of the Me Too generation, yeah? The Parkland response to gun violence, the protests that refuse the right of white supremacists to speak on campus, the formal complaints to the college administration if the reading list for a class is all white males of a certain age. Have you felt it too? Maybe seen it, the way young people right now are saying enough is enough, and striding out to create a world better than the one that you and I did our best to create for them. Tracy K. Smith was looking out at all that anger and passion and self-righteous determination and saying, add love. Don't try to do it without love. I think the challenge incumbent upon your generation, upon all of us really, but because of your age, perhaps you stand the best chance of meeting it. The great challenge within or beneath the challenges of climate change, of school safety, of supporting and defending one another's mental health, the challenge of a fair and humane immigration policy, and of a host of competing urgencies, is the challenge of loving in such a way that your sense of security, gratitude, honor, belief, joy, and worth affirms and amplifies those things in others. The greatest challenge incumbent upon you is learning to love others in ways they may be incapable of loving themselves, and of trusting them, giving them the reason, the wish to love you in kind. But I think it's possible to meet this challenge. After all, love is world creating. And then I thought, if only she could have pointed them to Jesus. If only she could have invited them to see, really see, that moment when he said, here are my mother and my brothers and my sisters. If only she could have used that moment of openness, all those young faces turned to her to say, he wants us to love one another the way he loved us. And oh, how he loved us. Instead, she did it in the poem that Donna read for us, which she read in her address. That extraordinary story of a woman who appeared at just the right time, when everything that makes for despair was so focused, and said, I love you. Wade in the water, children. It's ancient, ancient wisdom that is saving water, water that's about healing and hope, refreshment for body and soul. Wade in the water, it's here for you, whatever else is happening. With the promise that God is going to trouble the water, whatever it takes, until that moment of peace and wholeness for you is turned into the way the world is for everybody. It's disruptive, the love of God, but it's beautiful. And our job as brothers and sisters of Jesus is to be people who are learning to love in that way. If it's an appropriate message for young people at their commencement, surely it's equally important for old people at their retirements and everybody else when they come to a milestone, a turning point, where you take stock, you reassess where life is going to take you next. Life will take us in all different directions. But let it be about love. Love bigger than what our simple human makeup would dictate. Because whether you believe that there's nothing Jesus has that we haven't got, or whether you see him calling to us from a kind of humanity we can only aspire to, this love is our calling, our purpose, our joy. Amen. Ubi caritas et amor, wherever there's true love and charity, God is there. And In celebration, in gratitude, and in commitment, we offer our gifts to God for what love wants to do with us.